Hey, what do you say, Frankmeisters? Good evening. Well, good evening, Miss Kristin behind the crime door. How are you this evening?
I'm good. How are you?
Just taking in everything that's happened over the last week. I thought we'd come on here and do a little recap of things that have been testified against or with the prosecutor and some of the witnesses, and just try to do a little bit of recap and talk about things that have been put out there. So
Cool. Let's do it.
let's give a shout out to some people in the chat here. Tina Stair, Jackie Oliver, Witchcraft, Kelly O, Miss Wildcard, CJK, My Charlie, Joe. What's going on, Frosty? Miss Carrie Summers, I hope you're feeling much better. And I hope your dog's doing much better too. Miss Heidi Nixon, good to see you. Play going nuts as soon as I start. The Flora Ward, good to see you. Linda Harders. Kyra, good to see you. Roxy, Ron Lugan. Mr. Gravitt, good to see you. Miss Rescue, good to see you. Hey, there's Mir, good to see you. Miss Cheeks, Boss Mod's in the house. Everybody would behave herself. She's not had a good day. Purple Haze, good to see you. Miss Lois Kravis, good to see you. Wow. Thanks, everybody, for coming out tonight. Jennifer Reynolds, Middle Mama, Gibbo's True Crime Notebook. He's going around teasing everybody, keeps changing his name all the time. First, he went to Gibbo Meister, and now he's doing this. And Mustang. Heather Marie, good to see you. Boston Christian. All right, who's texting me already? Oh, yeah? Did he come over to your crib, or would you go over there, Jinxie? Jinx got to hang out with Tom Webster today, I guess. Lisa, good to see you. Boston Christian. Beth Gonzalez. I'm not caught up. Misty Free Spirit, Miss Mary, and V Marie. Good to see you. All right. I think the most interesting parts of the so far that I've been involved with the trial so far has got to be Sarah Carball, the doctor, the crime scene photos, the autopsy, the actual snippet of the video that was enhanced, where Libby had the phone kind of pointed down, and where Abby said, "Is he still behind me?" And those kind of things like that. But last week, I thought the prosecution did very well as far as their presentation, how they're going in order with things, and their witnesses have done very well. Now, I was kind of worried about Holman's testimony. From my understanding, what happened Saturday is the defense ate him alive. I don't know what you've been told, but I heard that he didn't have a very good day.
I've heard a few things. I right now I feel like the prosecution is doing really well. I feel that they are telling a story. They are doing putting out in chronological order everything that happened, and they're trying to not miss any of those points. I think that they're laying a good foundation, and they're building on that, and I think that is exactly what they should be doing. And I think that Nick has done a superb job, and I think that Diener is right on point with what she's been doing as well. So I'm not disappointed. I do know that in all cases, and I'm trying to not be super critical, and I'm really, really trying not to be, because I know that there's always going to be mistakes made. There's going to always be things that they wish they could go back and do differently. And this case is no different than any of those other cases where that happens. We've talked about this so much over the last year and a half, that when investigations happen in a case like this that is so gruesome and horrific, it's outdoors, and it's in a very remote, hard to get to location. You have so many things going against you, and then you have a inexperienced law enforcement team excuse me, that gets called in right off the bat.
Right.
Luckily for Delphi, they had a FBI agent that happened to be in town. And so the FBI was involved, and they were smart enough to contact ISP and say, look, we're going to need help. And I think that even with all of that being said, yes, there were mistakes made. How could there not be? We're dealing with human beings. These people are going to make mistakes.
Especially when they don't have the experience of something of this magnitude that happens in their county. Right. I mean, they all have admitted that none of them had experience at all. That's why they called upon the ISP, and things of that nature.
Exactly.
I mean,
I haven't seen anything that I feel has been horrifically damaging to the prosecution yet. And I know there's a lot of people out there running away with some of the things, like, oh my God, there's no DNA. We kind of known all along that there wasn't going to be DNA. We knew that they had some DNA, but not enough markers to get a profile. And that is why, do you see what I'm saying? So that's like why people just need to slow down here.
Right. A lot of cases are decided without DNA without any forensics of any sort.
Yes.
It's why it's very imperative, like you said, Kristin, that people not jump the gun.
Yep.
Yeah. We've known that this from the get-go. We knew that there wasn't enough DNA to create a profile. We knew this.
Yep.
And this was to be expected.
Yep. Yeah, we've known, those of us who've covered this case from day one, we've known all along that they didn't have DNA on their suspect. If there was a male DNA profile that they could have gathered, this would have been a slam dunk against Richard Allen.
But do you remember this, though? They cannot exclude Richard Allen from what sample they did have at that point in time.
Yes. Right.
You guys got to remember that.
Yep.
But this blood expert or DNA expert that testified today made it very clear. They're advancing in technology so fast that they're probably going to find out whose blood that is sometime in the future.
Right. And Joe Newman just brought up a really good point. I mean, you've got 4 deceased in Idaho, and in that gruesome scenario, the only reason that they even have his DNA was because he left the knife. If he hadn't left the knife, they wouldn't have that either.
The knife sheath. There was his touch DNA right on the knife sheath.
Yep.
Right around the button area.
And so, I mean, it happens. These perpetrators aren't as stupid as people think they are. Right. And especially these types that are going to do this sort of crime. I believe he's organized. I think he's extremely intelligent. I think that there's a lot of people that are not giving him the credit for that. As far as his intelligence, I think he's a manipulator, and I think he's very good at manipulation. And
or at least try to manipulate.
yeah, and I think it'll be really interesting to see that dynamic once we get into listening to him in his own words and his own voice on the confessions.
Right. You know, me and you have talked about this several times already, but you know what really gets us is some of these things that he has said to home, and it makes you wonder, why would you say something like that? You know, for instance, are you detaining my wife? I mean,
yeah, that was
what are you
bizarre.
worried about? What are you worried about? You know, you know, and then he did it at the police station too, telling them to leave my wife out of it. She ain't got nothing to do with this. What the hell is that supposed to mean? You know?
Yeah. No, again, it goes back to he was worried about it then. He's worried about it 2 years later, because all through this whole confession process, his biggest thing was, I don't want my family to know what happened to those girls. He doesn't want them to know what he did.
Right.
And he's tried desperately to protect them. And that's, to me, says a lot about this whole thing and as to why he's been the way he is. But I definitely feel like, we've talked about the fact, did this guy go out there with the intent to do what he did that day? And I firmly believe he did. The more I listened to what was said, he told Jerry Holman that he didn't carry his gun on a regular basis. He also he'd never been to Ron Logan's property, and he'd never gone hunting at the trails. So all of those things make you wonder, then why did you have a gun out there that day? Why did you have a box cutter with you that day? What was what was the intent of why were you, I do know, I can't remember who it was that I was just watching, and I apologize, but I was just watching somebody in the last couple of days that said they carry a box cutter as a pocket knife. And it's one of the kind of box cutters that actually bend. So it's like it opens up and makes into a longer knife, but it's still a box cutter. And they use it. That's what they carry as their pocket knife. But that's not what he used. I mean, he said he used one from CVS. So,
And then me and you got to talking about, when Liggett testified this past week about the search area, the Hoosier Harvest Store camera.
Thanks, SP74. It was Steve with True Crime Web. He said he carries a box cutter as a pocket knife.
And if Sarah Carball seen him in between the Mears lot and the cemetery, and that's a pretty far distance. To me, it is on foot, actually, because I've walked it several times. How in the hell was he not caught on the HHS camera? If you got his car on camera on 300, you had to have gotten him on 300 somewhere in that area. You could walk on the Mears property all you want behind a Hoosier Harvest Store, come back out. It comes right back out on 300. You picked his car up right there on 300. Why couldn't you have picked him up? That's one of the questions a lot of people are probably thinking right now. And you talked about this. We know for a fact that he did not get in that Ford Focus with bloody clothes on. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, I think that there's a couple of possibilities of why he either changed his clothes, had a second set of clothes, or he used plastic possibly in his car to sit on. Even with that, you take the chance of still getting something within the car. And we know from the testimony so far that they didn't find anything in the car.
Right.
They would have led with that stuff. That's not something they would just come out with now. they would have talked about that from the very beginning.
Right.
And so we know that they don't have that kind of stuff. And those are questions that the defense are going to pound away at, trust. That's things
Right.
that they're going to really try it. Well, I'm assuming that
Right.
they will try to, you know, get with. But again, the defense has laid out their case. They laid out their case in the opening statements, and their theory is that the two girls were taken away from the Monon High Bridge Trail area to some other location and brought back. That is something that I believe 150% has already been disproven. That doesn't hold water. Those girls didn't go anywhere. Those girls were taken down that hill and across that creek, and they died right there. They weren't taken away from that location.
The big sign of debunking that is basically the phone never left that location.
Exactly. Yeah.
Excuse me. I want to get out there real quick. Guys, I am trying to get back up to Delphi by this weekend, and the fund situation is hit again, and I'm short on money getting up there. If you guys are willing to help out, there's my Cash App on the screen, or you can go to my Buy Me a Coffee and donate there also. All right, Kristin, go ahead.
Thanks, guys. I think, I definitely think that he thought once he saw Sarah Carbaugh, I think he freaked out and he left 300 North, either through the fields or whatever, and tried to stay away from where he thought there was cameras. I firmly believe that he knew all of this because I think
he avoided that camera. There's no doubt in my mind that he did.
He did because he knew about them. And I think that he is, he's the one, I don't think people realize, but Richard Allen's the one who brought up Odinism. And, you know, you said it today when you and I were discussing this on the phone. Richard Allen has been following this case since day one.
Oh, yeah.
You can bet your bottom dollar this guy was following this case. I believe he was following it on all social media platforms. He was probably following it on Facebook, on Twitter, wherever he could get information.
Me and you were talking about this today, as a matter of fact. When Mullen and Liggett first approached Richard Allen, okay, and asked him to voluntarily come to the police station and talk. Remember what we talked about today when Liggett showed him the photo of the bridge guy. And he said, "Is this you?" And he said, "If it's out of the girl's phone, it's not me." Tell him what you told me today.
How would he know that? How would he have known? How would he have known that the photograph that they had of bridge guy came from Libby's phone if he wasn't following everything with the case, right?
Good point. It's a good point. They had not told us yet.
So many people didn't know where that photo came from in the early days because they didn't tell us right away. And in the early days, people were thinking, "Oh my God, there's trail cam out there. Where did they pick this up at? Where did they get this picture? Where did they get this photo?" And, you know, when they told us it came from a cell phone, you know, it was, I mean, we didn't know about the video for 2 years.
2 years. Yeah.
2 years. We didn't know they had a video of Bridge Guy. And so there are things, like I said, and I think that this is going to all come out because they're going to say, or they're going to talk about things that only Bridge Guy would know, or only things the killer would know. And little slips, little things that he says are important. And it's really important to know that that's what I've always said. He said something October 23rd in that interview with Jerry Holman that made Jerry Holman's ears stand up and say, "This is our guy. We've got him." I still believe that.
And
Because
we don't know.
the
And that's supposed
question-
to be played this week too sometime.
Well, the question was asked of him on the stand over the weekend. Was your intent to arrest Richard Allen that day? No, it was not. He had no intentions of arresting him that day, but something changed. His demeanor, for one.
Yeah.
And he talked about how his demeanor changed. Now, remember, Jerry Holman got special training
By the FBI.
And in that special training, I know he got training on what to look for in deception, because there's all kinds of things that happen when you're interviewing potential suspects, and things that most people wouldn't know to look for. And a lot of it is body language and their demeanor. You know?
Right.
And he said all those things changed. And I think that gave him a real uneasy feeling. Just like you said earlier today. What was it that made him keep saying it doesn't matter anymore? It's all over anyway.
Right. And then to ask.
That's a weird thing for an innocent man to say, you guys. Stop and think about it.
And also for him to ask if my wife is being detained. Why would you? I mean, I don't understand. If you're an innocent man, why are you asking if your wife's being detained? And then to be interviewed again and tell them to leave his wife out of it because she has nothing to do with this. What to do with what? What are you talking about, Richard? You know, you giving us signs here, or what are you doing here? You know? But it's going to be very interesting to be able to hear that interview, or at least hopefully I'll be there by then if they play it.
Yeah, they're supposed to play them. I thought they were playing one of them today.
No, they had Cicero, and the DNA lady was on the stand today. That's all they had.
Thought I saw. Hold on. I'm just looking at something real quick because I thought it was late in the day.
Anybody needs buy my coffee, it's right here on the screen, guys. Thank you to Patricia Clark.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Donation. There was another one here. Let's see, come through. And yeah. Miss Susan Smith, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, guys, for sure.
It's not cheap. I mean, I got the cheapest place in town for a hotel for 5 nights, and it wasn't cheap.
Oh no, it's not cheap no matter what. I mean, everything is so expensive right now in the world, and it's just, you know, like I said, not only for you to stay, but then you have to eat.
And then I got Blade.
Plus you have him.
And then transportation back and forth to the courtroom.
Yep.
You know, I tell you what, though, I mean, the ballistic specialist, Melissa Ober, is that her name? I guess she did a fantastic job, and I guess she really did many a test to make sure that her findings were correct when it came to Richard Allen's bullet. I mean, she cycled so many rounds out of that gun to see if she was still getting the same comparisons as she was. She even test fired numerous different .40 caliber weapons.
Yep. You know? And and like I said, I mean, I believe in that science. I believe that science is not junk science. It's good science. And I think that it's interesting that Richard Allen's old attorneys, the ones that were there for just
Librato and Scrimmon. Yeah.
He also believes it. I mean, he said that he also believes that is good science.
Scrimmon, yeah. Mm-hmm. I remember that interview.
So when you have to look at that and as for what it is, it's real easy to try and debunk it because, you know, that's what the defense is going to try and do and say, well, that's speculative on your part and it's very subjective by who's looking at it. All of that kind of stuff. But you and I've talked about this, and we've talked about it a lot. It's not just one thing. It's not just the bullet. It's not just this. It's not just this. It's everything. You can maybe explain away one piece of evidence. You might be able to explain away this piece of evidence. But how do you explain away the memento 40 caliber bullet in his memory box on his dresser? How do you get past that? What's the reason for that?
I mean, it's like me and you were talking about, and some people got it backwards when they did the search warrant and they found the actual 40 cal 6-hour weapon, and the clips that were loaded, or the magazines. Let me just use the words magazines because people get on me for being old school and saying clips. The magazines were loaded with Blazer rounds, guys. They were not the Winchester rounds. Let's make that very clear, okay? And we also know that the keepsake box had photographs from his graduation, him going fishing, pictures of him out at Deer Creek leaning up against a tree. It's a memory box. Why in the hell would he keep one single Winchester round in a memory box? Think about that one, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, and it was the same, you know, it's a Winchester round. It's a 40 caliber. It's the same kind of round that was found between the girls. And, you know, that was the other thing that he told Jerry Holman, that when he does take his gun, he's always got one in the chamber. So
it almost makes, I mean, you know how he said that he had a dream or whatever it was that he shot the girls in the back? It makes me wonder if that was his actual intent now, and it misfired, and that's why he's missing the round.
It's very possible. Jinx, it's because he wore gloves. That's the only way that there wouldn't be touch DNA on the casings of the bullets, because.
And it was in dirt and mud too. You got to remember that.
Right.
That contaminates a lot of stuff.
And there could be obviously contamination, but yeah, we all know, and that's what I started to say earlier. You know, go back to when you were first looking at the picture of Bridge Guy and you saw him on the bridge, and everybody was like, look at all the stuff he's got stuffed in that jacket. Come on, guys. Everybody thought that he had stuff stuffed in the jacket.
It looked like it, yes.
Stuffed in the jacket. What would that be? Would it be zip ties? Would it be, I mean, they talked today about the fact that Abby may very well have been
gagged in some way.
Somehow her hands or whatever were.
And her mouth. Remember about her mouth. Yes.
So did he bring tape? Did he bring zip ties to subdue them? You know, and he had gloves. Come on. You know, if he's going to cover his face, if he's going to go to the trouble of not wanting to be seen and recognized by covering his face, he's going to bring gloves.
Right.
He's not a dumb guy. So yeah, I mean, I feel that very strongly about that. So then what happens to those things? We've talked about this. Is it because he buried them out in the woods somewhere, changed his clothes out in the woods somewhere, and you know, he didn't change his clothes because he was muddy and bloody when he was seen by Sarah. So we know that. But what happened from that point? Did he go back to his car? You know what I'm saying? Fully clothed that way with all of that on there. And if he did, then why was there not DNA in that vehicle?
Right. No, I mean, you can layer up all you want inside of a vehicle, but 9 times out of 10, you're going to rub up against something and not realize it and leave some type of touch DNA, period.
Yeah.
Joe Newman says, did anyone hear about Russ McQuaid talk about there being a tear? Is that true? I saw some mention of it today, but I really didn't look twice at it because I was trying to put stuff together what we could talk about for the live tonight. What do you know, Kristin?
Cicero said it on the stand. And when he said it on the stand, Becky broke down. He said that there was what appeared to be tears on her cheek.
Who Libby's? Mm-hmm. Which would make sense.
And I can imagine that the girls cried a lot during this whole ordeal that they went through, even though it was very quick and rapid. Like I said, you can only imagine
the fear that was
fear and terror, that they were terrified with what was going on. And yeah, so, and it doesn't surprise me.
Okay. Now we do need to get some straight. The hair that was found in Abby's hand did belong to Kelsey. Okay. Now I've already seen some headlines on some other channels. Is Kelsey a monster?
Oh God.
Yes. First of all, it was Kelsey's sweatshirt that Abby had on.
It was one hair and it was wrapped around her pinky finger. Are you kidding me? She had just been in Kelsey's car.
Right. And you got Kelsey's sweatshirt on.
Right.
I mean, think about it. Common sense is going to tell you it's going to belong to the person, the clothing that she had on.
The hair on her is a nothing burger.
It's a nothing burger.
It's a nothing burger. It was a transfer hair, and it could have come from the car. It could have come from her hugging Kelsey that day. It could have come, like we've talked about this. Women, especially, we lose a lot of hair. And most of us who have long hair are losing a ton of hair.
Tell me about it. Look at me. And I'm a dude.
There you go.
We already know what they're going to do here. They're going to try to bring in the third party. We already know they're going to try that. And I feel that he's guilty just by some of the stuff I've already seen. Honestly.
Oh, I do. I feel they have they right guy. I absolutely feel that this guy is their guy. And I haven't even heard his confessions yet. So in my mind, if I'm sitting there as a juror, I've already, you're not supposed to do that. I mean, you're instructed as a juror to wait until you hear all the evidence. But it's going to be
I have seen some of the jurors get emotional.
Oh yeah. How could you not?
I've seen it. And it's just like they've been living this dream for a while now, like they've seen it and it still affects them.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
Cold-hearted monster. See, Boston Christian, thank you for the 1999 super sticker. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys, for helping out to get Frankmeister back up there.
Yeah, because the good stuff's coming soon, and I want to be able to relay the message, the information out of the courtroom exactly the way it should be. I understand that news stations, they've got a specific way they've got to do stuff. They've got a certain amount of time. They've got to do a little bit of a recap, and they might get 3 to 5 minutes. I get all that. But I know for a fact that they're leaving stuff way out that's very important with some of these witnesses that are coming to the stand. And I'm not going to say their names, but I know for a fact one has been getting emails being basically bitched at because he's not reporting exactly what's coming out of the courtroom. Because I've seen the messages he's been posting.
Well, there's a lot of people that are just posting stuff to be salacious, in my opinion. And the headlines that they choose, the taglines that they choose for their articles,
right,
and stuff. It's I don't know. I just don't like it.
Hey, everybody. Deb's True Crime Notebook. Y'all need to check her channel out. This lady, she is on fire over there with her videos, guys. You guys got to check her out.
She's doing an amazing job.
Yeah. You know, I had to go back and listen to some of hers to make sure that I've got the right information.
Yeah. Yeah. She's, Deb's got it going on.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, and kudos to her because, you know, it's hard to keep up with that when you got your own life, you're trying to do your own stuff, and she's trying to get those out twice a day. And it's, you know, it's tough. And, but she's doing a really, really bang up job.
CJK, for something so incredibly wicked, if you were an innocent man, would you not take the stand and give your alibi? Well, Nick McClelland eat his ass up.
I will say that a lot of times taking the stand is not in the defendant's best interest, because the prosecution can really, really rake them over the coals. And I get what you're saying. My feeling is nowhere has this man, since he's been arrested, written letters or said anything that I'm innocent and I didn't do this. We haven't heard him. Now, we did hear him by Jerry Holman said today, and I guess we will hear it this week, that he said like over 25 times in his interview, I didn't do this. But other than that, like, he had a chance to tell the judge, he had a chance to tell the court when he wrote to the court and was talking about being indigent and not having any money and needing help. He could have said, you know, I'm an innocent man that's being railroaded here. And I've lost my job. I've lost my family, my house. I need help. I didn't do this. I didn't do this. I mean, you would think that would be the body of the letter.
Right. V. Marie says it's not hard. It's hard not getting to feel the vibe in the courtroom from the outside looking in. I am honestly getting worried about justice. That's why I'm trying to get back up there, V, because I report exactly what's going on in the courtroom. I don't leave stuff out. You know, there's just like when Sarah Carball testified. I laid it out there for you guys. That girl handled her business on that stand. She was being dramatic. I mean, she was just getting right back into the defense's ass for asking stupid ass questions. I mean, her primary one, he wanted to go back over her allegedly saying muddy 13 times in an interview. And she said, are we going to do this again? Right on the stand. That's what we need to see these witnesses be doing, is getting in the defense's ass when they do that kind of shit. You know what I'm saying? Just like Dr. Waller did the same thing to Rosie when she testified in the 3-day hearings, you know, letting him know, hey, you know, if it's there, if it's written down, it happened. You don't basically have to keep repeating the same questions in a different format. Because from what I understood what happened with the bullet witness, the ballistic lady, that's what Rosie was doing. And she was letting him know about it. Telling him, you can reword this question all you want. I'm going to give you the same answer. You know what I mean?
But that's what they do that for. You know, they ask the same question in 40 different ways to try to trip you up.
Right.
And that's what they did. And, you know, honest to God, she was the best witness for some, you know, there's a couple of reasons why Sarah is such a strong witness. For one, she tells it just right from the beginning. I didn't want to be involved in this case. I didn't want any part of this case. It's what took her 3 weeks to come forward. She was afraid. She did not want to do this. She did not want to put herself in the middle of this case.
Right.
And it's really easy to see that she was telling the truth. You know, you think about people who interject themselves. Think about the YouTubers in this community that have interjected themselves in this case, that became a part of this case.
Right.
And that is the difference between them and Sarah. You know, Sarah didn't want to have to do this, and she didn't want to be the forefront of this case. But when she saw what she saw and she saw him, she couldn't live with herself. She knew that she saw the guy that they were looking for, and she needed to come forward.
Deb, we talked about this earlier today. Do you know who else didn't leave any DNA behind at the crime scene? Chad Daybell, and he's on death row now. No DNA. Remember that. To the people that are out there watching who do not subscribe to my channel, that don't like me, it's pro defense, which I don't give a damn. Prime example: Chad Daybell found
There's a
guilty.
lot of people that have gone to death that didn't have DNA. I mean, even before we had DNA, how do you think they solved cases before? They had DNA. And yes, people are going to say, oh, but there's innocent people. And yes, you're absolutely right.
But it takes them 40 to 50 years down the road to fight their case to get that DNA, to have everything tested. That's why it takes them so long to exonerate these people, guys.
Yeah, and Joe's right. This is real life. It's not CSI.
No.
CSI shows them getting DNA and wrapping it up with a pretty little bow on it, and and off they go to prison. That's not how this happens, and that's not how crime scenes are. If I'll tell you what, investigators will tell you, if they get one confession, they're lucky.
Right.
One, and they're ecstatic, and the defense is trying to have it thrown out. We have 61 in this case, you guys. 61 confessions. Do you know how unusual that is?
You see that? Your favorite person.
Oh yeah, she before I came on, she was on my timeline. She on YouTube. I saw she had 5,000 people watching. I'm like, it's sad. It's just sad. Why do you think she came to Delphi? She came to Delphi to get her channel over 100,000. And if for anybody who thinks otherwise, they don't know this Burkhart woman and what she's about. She's not about justice. And that's absolutely how I feel. Otherwise, she'd have been covering this case for the last 7 years, because it's been huge. It's not something, it's international. It's not like she didn't hear about it.
See, and this is what I thought also, witchcraft. He had multiple layers of clothes on, so he could have stripped down to other layers underneath and got rid of the other stuff where we don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
No DNA doesn't rule him out or in. It's something they just don't have, blank, not to be considered, in my opinion. Someone didn't leave a DNA, end of story, for jury considerations.
Yep. He said he got interrupted.
I don't carry a box cutter. Sorry, but let's go through the chat. I
had somebody email me and say that Burkhart and Lee are just like Tom Webster. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but Tom has been covering this case for quite some time, and they're not like Tom Webster, and that they're just there in the courtroom to get out what's really happening. And I don't buy that at all. They have an agenda. She is, I don't know anything about Lawyer Lee, but Andrea Burkhart is a defense attorney, and her whole mindset is just like Bob Mata. They come at this as defense attorneys, and they're all out there about being that way. They're not looking at the case objectively, attorney or not.
I'm just reading through chat, trying to find some good ones.
And what I feel about it, in anger about it, and what I said was crazy, was the fact that they're taking seats from locals, people who actually live in Delphi, who knew these girls, who knew their families and wanted to be in the courtroom. They're willing to go out and spend all night out there and sit out there and have people save them seats, so they don't have to sit out there, so that they can take those seats away from locals. That's where I have an issue with it. I don't have an issue with Frankmeister or anybody that's been covering this case for years.
But see, I lucked out. Honestly, I lucked out.
With the families, I don't have a problem with that.
Me and Susan Hendricks got a special reserved seats for us when we were in there to sit with the families. And I just lucked out because there was extra seats on the family side, so they invited us to sit with them. Now, what you're talking about is these other people. I mean, some of these people that have not even covered the case very long are there, and it's driving me crazy.
Oh, God, she come right out and said it. Guess where I'm going? I'm going to Delphi, and I've never covered this case on my channel.
And then you got Lawyer Lee. She's all up Julie Melvin's ass. Because they're there together.
It's disgusting.
You know, and she doesn't even know anything about this case. She came out of the woodworks, and I guess there's a new attorney that's coming onto the case and on YouTube now. Some other female. So
it's terrible.
It is. I mean, I'm just lucky enough that the family wants me in the courtroom, and I'm appreciated that they do. You know, that's why I'm trying to get back up there this weekend, guys, so I can actually put real information out, the real information that's going on in the courtroom. I'm not saying these other YouTubers are not, but some of them will leave dramatic stuff out. Like I said, when Sarah Carball, what she did, you know, and then I broke it down exactly what Dr. Core gave, what information he gave us. I didn't beat around the bush and leave anything out of that because I think it's that we needed to know exactly what took place and what injuries the girls had, you know, and things of that nature.
If you're a successful attorney and you're making money doing lawyer work, you're not on YouTube. Sorry. You don't have time to be on YouTube. YouTube takes a lot of time and a lot of time to build a channel. Look at Gray Hughes, for God's sakes. Look how much time that man spends on his channel. I mean, people can say what they want to about him, but he is on his channel all the time. And when he's not, he's working, building, you know, videos and maps and whatever for whatever case he's covering. It's a full-time job for him. These attorneys, they are not lawyering. I mean, they're just not. They don't have time.
Gail Hurd says, do you think it's possible the girls were at least partially disrobed on the south side? I don't know what that's supposed to say. The girls ran across this creek trying to get away. It's possible because we do know that they were interrupted on the northeast side along the bank somewhere. We know that because it was said in court. And then we also do believe that they were interrupted on the opposite side where they were, the bodies were found at that time. So it is possible that they were partially disrobed. We just don't know that because it was never made public if they were.
Well, I don't think that they know completely what happened.
Right.
I think they have to come up with an idea. And that's what, you know, that's what the forensic specialists, the CSIs and the behavioral analysts do, is try to figure out what happened based on what that crime scene is telling them. And, you know, there's a number of different things that could actually be true here that we may never truly know.
Right.
Unless he comes out and 100% confesses and tells investigators everything that happened.
Right. Patricia Clark, she was always one of the first 5 in the door when I was there. Nice to see you, Patricia. We're talking about the CPS building. Carrie, no one talks about it, but the abandoned building is very, very critical to me if he comes out DNA free in the vehicle. It makes sense. Yeah, because somebody sleuth the video of walking in and out of the old CPS building. The doors were wide open. You can go in and out. So it's possible he could have got in there and changed clothes, you know, before he left.
Yeah. We can talk about the DNA a little bit, you guys. We've talked about this. I've talked about it on my channel. Frank and I have talked about it here. But Paul Holes discussed the DNA in this case at CrimeCon. And he said one of the biggest problems that investigators have when you have a victim who has shed a lot of DNA, a lot of blood. We know that this was a highly bloody crime scene. And you have that much victim DNA, you more than likely are going to have far less DNA from the perpetrator. And when they mix, it washes.
When you have an overwhelming amount from the victim,
you have an overwhelming amount from the victim, and it dilutes the amount that you have from the perpetrator. You don't get DNA profiles from that. And he felt that that was going to be an uphill battle for the prosecution in this case, because everything that he knew and everything that he saw, that is what they were looking at, was that. And that kind of crime scene.
She's asking why. I want to know why RA said if the pics come from Libby's phone, it wasn't him. He wasn't thinking, I can tell you that, because they didn't even know. No one knew it came from the phone yet at that point in time. And that was back in 2022. Yeah. Just going through the chat here. Yeah, see, I still wonder if he went back there for some reason. Plus, they would be a suicide mission to come out in the woods in the middle of the night when searchers are out there. Yeah, that dude was up and gone, out of there quick.
Oh, as soon as he knew people were coming, he hightailed it out of there. He hightailed it out of there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This account, thank you for the super sticker. Thank you. That's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to try to debunk. What are they going to try to debunk there, GP? Sorry if I missed whoever you're talking to. Yep, exactly, Big Mateo. You got it exactly right. And Chris has been saying is it's evidence in the whole.
It's the totality of the evidence.
Yes.
Not each individual piece. And that's where, as a jury and being a juror, and I've been a juror and Frank's been a juror, that when you're looking at the evidence, you have to look at all of it. And you can't just pull a piece of evidence out and say, well, this piece of evidence here isn't strong, so therefore I don't think that he's guilty. No, you have to look at all of it. You have to look at every single piece and the totality of it. And all
you got to look for, also got to look for evidence that's not in there that should be in there. And that's what I experienced being a foreman on that jury back in the 2000s. A piece of evidence was missing, and I'm like, well, damn, you can't convict a dude if that evidence is not here. You know what I mean? So let's see. We're getting up on that hour time. Boston Christian, thank you for the $9.99 super chat.
Yeah, the timeline is going to be absolutely crucial. And again, that is why the defense has tried to put Richard Allen not there during the time the girls were there. That's their big thing. And we all know that that is bull. That is BS.
I'm waiting on it.
There.
How come everybody else saw BG, but you didn't? Because you are BG.
Because you are BG. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I wish they would get him on the stand and say, did you see BG? And Nick would say, and he would say no. And he said, why didn't you see BG?
When everybody else saw BG.
Right. And the dude's hit. I mean, I hope these jurors have got some common sense.
I mean, he says he was standing on platform 1. He says he was standing on platform 1 looking at fish. And Betsy Blair saw Bridge Guy on platform 1. What else do you need to hear? That is who she saw. That's who she saw.
The only male out there.
Yes. There wasn't anybody else that it could be. Who could it have been? And nobody saw multiple Odinites out there running around doing sacrifices.
You were the only male out there at the time frame when this all took place. Dude, you didn't think this through when you said it wasn't me on that picture. Come
You're
on,
blurry
dude.
again, Frank.
Come on.
Now you are.
There we go. But we're about the hour mark. And I just wanted to come up here and do a little bit of recap of things that have taken place in the trial so far. We got to the DNA part today, and it did kind of bother me with the genital swab that they found male DNA, but not making enough to make a profile. But like she explained, that could come from anywhere.
Yep.
It can come from anywhere. I mean, clothes being mixed together at home, you know,
yep.
and things like that. So there's nothing to worry about with that. And not worried about Kelsey. Just because it was her hair, we know they're probably going to attack her when they call her as a witness. We already know this. But I think Kelsey's being prepared for that. So I hope she does very well when it's her turn. So, but like I said, guys, just wanted to come on here for a little bit, let you all know that I am going to try to make it up to Delphi this coming weekend again. I just need a little bit more help. And I wanted to talk about some of the things that have taken place this last week. And Kristin, Miss That True Crime Notebook. Everybody tries to keep an eye on what's going on and puts their own thoughts into everything. And they post a lot of this stuff on their YouTube channels, guys. So keep watching everybody else's YouTube channels, and we'll get more up-to-date information since I'm not there right now. Justice is
coming, guys. Keep the families in your prayers. What they're hearing and going through is really, really gut-wrenching.
Right here. And Kristin, thank you so much for joining me. And to everybody who's donated this live stream tonight, thank you so much. Thank you, mods. Y'all, I love you guys. You did a wonderful job. But you guys know what time it is.
Bye, guys.
Peace out. One love. Good night. Love you guys.